KBJR TV6 presents the start of the 1992 John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon, brought to you by Minnesota Power, always at your service, and your area Toyota dealers. I love what you do for me, Toyota.
Well, we are just a few minutes and counting to the start of the largest sled dog race in the continental United States. The purse for this event is $50,000. Standing by live right where the action is our own Mike Berkland along with our sports team. Is it cold enough for you there, guys?
Oh, Michelle, this is lovely weather. We're enjoying it here. We're only a couple of minutes away from the start of the 1992 John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon. The trip from Duluth to Grand Portage back. Former Bear Grease musher and Ely native Kerry Downers joins us, and Tom Hansen from the sports staff is also here along with Tony Shockley down at the starting chute. First of all, Kerry, what are your expectations of this year's event?
Well, what all the mushers usually talk about at this time in the races is what the trail conditions are like and the weather and stuff. It looks like it's going to be great. There's been enough snow. It's not too hard. It's not too sharp. It's not too punchy where the dog's feet will push through. And the temperature is ideal. And if it stays clear and the sun comes out tomorrow, this will just be perfect.
And so it makes for a fast time.
Fast times, injury-free conditions. You know, it'll be good.
And from your perspective, too, on some of the mushers that you've talked with, what are their thoughts before the race time here?
Well, a lot of them are real busy just rummaging around with their gear and trying not to be too nervous. So it's hard to get a lot of real detailed stuff out of them, but everybody's been real optimistic that I've talked to.
And Tom Hansen's here as well. And Tom, we do expect to see a fast race over the next couple of days.
Yeah, no question about it, Mike. Some people talk with the mandatory extra time on the way back that maybe that would slow up the race, but not necessarily so. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you talked about some of the mushers and their expectations. Some of them are pretty carefree. You know, some of them, as you mentioned, Kerry, are kind of uptight, a little nervous, kind of wound up a little bit. But some of them are let's have a good time and let's see how the dogs actually do today.
Mark Stam from Monroe, Washington will be the first musher out of the chute here in just a few seconds at 6:15. Tony Shockley is standing by live at the starting chute, and Mark Stam, as we mentioned, will be the first musher out. And Tony, is Mark attending to his dogs right now at this moment?
He certainly is, Mike. He's down there making sure all of his dogs are okay and giving them a last-minute pep talk, as you might say. I think Mark is a little bit excited to be the first musher out here tonight, and his dogs are certainly excited as well. We've got a good crowd here down at the starting line tonight. Nobody seems to mind the cold, and it's going to be a good race.
Of course, Mark Stam is in his second Bear Grease. He's got 11 years of mushing experience. Last year he was a rookie on this race, had to drop out midway through. He's been in the Montana 500 three different times, finishing 6th in 1987, 5th in 1989, and 4th in 1990. He's also raced in the Yukon Quest race, and this is his second appearance, as we said. Now, he's the first musher out. Well, how does that, as being the first musher out, what kind of approach do you take as you leave Ordine here, knowing you're the first team?
I think once or twice I've been the first out of the chute, and the biggest concern that I think a person would have would be that there's no scent trail down. In this race, there is a pace team, so there is that one trail they can follow, but Mark, this isn't native country for Mark, and he's probably a little apprehensive about if he's going to stay on the trail, what's going to happen. He knows what's going on. He knows enough.
But he wasn't actually the first one to draw bib number 1, if I'm correct. He was a swap early on, and from what I understand, then he became the first one.
Yeah, Albert Fleury actually drew the number 1 pick out of the hat this year, but Albert's a rookie from Gilbert, Minnesota, a musher who's mushed the Bear Grease races, the 130 and the 100 before. There you see Mark Stam up in the front of his dog team right now. As a musher does this, is it just kind of reassuring his dogs, calming them before the big race?
Yeah, you want to make sure that you don't have any dogs that are straddling the line or tangled in any way, and you want to check with your dogs visually. You want to get eye contact with them so they know that everything's okay, because there's a lot of tension here.
Looks like a pretty good start for Mark Stam.
Yeah, that's beautiful. His dogs all have a good, they're all in line. They all have the same kind of gait and stride, and Mark's could be competitive here.
Now, Mark Stam, of course, is going out as just a lone musher with a lone sled. We'll get into more of that later, as some mushers go with 2 sleds, and sometimes a handler will go along on the 1 sled. We'll get back to that in just a few minutes as we come back live with our coverage. But first, we'll take a break and then come back with Carroll Hall's Bear Grease forecast. That and more right after this.
Of Superior, welcome Bob Lugo from Milaca, Minnesota. Bob's about a minute away now from getting underway. He'll be out into the night joining Mark Stam, both on their way to Grand Portage, the halfway point of this year's marathon. From there, it's back home down the same line they pick up to return to Duluth and Lester Park sometime late Saturday night or early Saturday morning. Just a little less than a half minute now to Bob Lugo going out onto the race course. They're all heading for the first checkpoint at the idle hour. Count it down with me. Let's send Bob Lugo on his way in style. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He's out of here. He's on his way. See you, Bob. See you, Bob. Two teams on their way. 2 teams into the night. We have 27 left to go. Next up, Ray Gordon. Ray Gordon is 54 years old. He's from Rock Springs, Wyoming. He's been mushing now for 29 years, having participated in the granddaddy of sled dog races, the Iditarod, where in 1984 he placed 19th. He is now racing in his 6th Bear Grease. Last year, Ray placed 10th in this race. He's a used car salesman, enjoys hunting and fishing. Ray is sponsored by Stuart Taylor Printing Company of Duluth. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ray Gordon from Rock Springs, Wyoming. These dogs are pretty excited, looking forward to a trek that'll take them from here to Grand Portage and back. It's a job just to keep them from tangling at the start. You can see the extra number of handlers here. Later on in the race, it won't take so many, but dogs get excited at the start of a race, especially one as big as the Bear Grease. Let's count him down now as we get close to sending him on his way. Our third competitor and wearing bib number 3, Ray Gordon. He's about ready to take off. He is pulling behind him another sled that'll help slow him down. Let's send him on his way in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, we'll see ya. See ya. There he goes, Ray Gordon. You'll notice that he's got a helper, what's known as a drag sled behind him. The team's obviously very excited at the start, and they could pull too fast and too hard and could tip him over, causing serious injury. The additional sled behind Ray helps slow him down a little bit, and that keeps the team from pulling too hard and possibly upsetting the sled. I'd like to announce right now that WDSM 71 Country is having a banner contest here this evening with the help of Iceman Boots. Our first prize is a pair of Iceman boots and a family dinner at the Chinese Lantern. WDSM banner judging contest has begun right now, so if you brought your banner with you, this is the time to display it so the judges can see which banner is the best. The banner must include something about Iceman boots, WDSM radio, obviously the Bear Grease, and wish all the mushers here this evening good luck. Let's welcome to the starting line now, Spencer Few. Spencer is 41, he's from Canton, New York. He'll be racing for the Call of the Wild Kennels. Spencer has 6 years mushing experience, including competition in the 90 and 91 Bear Grease 130, taking a first place in the Wayland Sled Dog Derby in 1989. Spencer will race with a team entirely made up of registered Siberian Huskies, and these are beautiful animals. Spencer is sponsored by his employer, the Atlantic Testing Laboratories Limited, where he's a civil engineer. Let's welcome from Canton, New York, Spencer Thew. Spencer's getting ready to go. He'll be on his way in just a few minutes. Let's send him on his way. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you, Spencer! Ladies and gentlemen, there goes Spencer Thew and his team of registered Siberian Huskies. Beautiful animals. Okay, let's welcome one of our local favorites. Here's Jamie Nelson from Togo, Minnesota. Wearing bib number 5, Jamie Nelson from Togo, Minnesota has 19 years of mushing experience and is now racing in her 7th Bear Grease, having won this event in 1988 and finishing 2nd in 1989. She's also finished the Iditarod in 1989 and won the Mid-Minnesota 90 and the Esslinger Classic 90. Jamie is a school bus driver in Grand Rapids and is sponsored by the National Dog Food and by
Minnesota Lake Gordon, 54-year-old from Rock Springs, Wyoming, was the 3rd musher out at 6:19. Spencer Thew just went by at the 6:21 mark. He's a 41-year-old from Canton, New York. And Jamie Nelson, the 1988 champion, is the next musher due out of the starting chute here for the 1992 Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon. There you see Jamie, and she's at the front of her team. And the mushers always go to that lead dog, don't they, Kerry?
Well, those lead dogs are crucial, and most mushers that are experienced in this race have 5, 6, sometimes up to 8 or 10 dogs in their team will be able to lead. You want to rotate your dogs through that position. It's a lot of pressure to be under, and it helps to have some versatility there.
Kerry, do you feed the dogs right before they start, or do you time them out maybe a couple hours before they actually start a race?
Well, everybody operates a little differently, of course, but we were giving our dogs a little bit of water, maybe a kind of a soup mixture, maybe about an hour before going out of the chute. You don't want them to have too full of a stomach. They're just about as nervous as the musher is right now, so you don't want them to lose anything on the trail.
And the countdown is on for Jamie Nelson now. Nelson is the 5th musher out of the starting chute here from Mordine Junior High. With the snow hook, and there goes Jamie Nelson starting the 1992 Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon. It was a real disappointing year for Jamie a couple years ago. She got thrown from her sled when the race course went into Beaver Bay, and it was a year with not much snow, and it was a brand new rule change that year to go into Beaver Bay on the way up. They've since changed that, and that's obviously one reason why.
That's an extremely treacherous hill going down in there, and the lack of snow is just super icy. Jamie wasn't the only one who was hurt there. Arlie Jorgensen dislocated his shoulder in an injury there.
Bradley Erickson also got hurt, I remember.
Right, he got scraped up real bad, and down in the checkpoint, Bob Bartlett, the judge at the time, got injured by helping to stop a team.
Jamie Erickson's off. Her son Eric was also along with her. He'll jump off that other sled at the Riley Road checkpoint.
Later on this evening, you're going to meet Robin's wife, Kathy, who is also racing this year's Bear Grease, not only to beat Robin Jacobson, but the other 29 teams as well. One of 2 married couples in the race this year, Robin and Kathy Jacobson. At the starting line right now, 28-year-old Robin Jacobson from Squaw Lake, Minnesota, a past Bear Grease champion. And once again, Robin has decided to go with that extra sled just to slow him down a little bit. Believe me, in the thick of the race, you won't see a second sled behind any one of these mushers. They'll be mushing as fast as they can, and they don't want anything to slow them down. Are you ready to say goodbye to Robin? Are you ready? Are you ready? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, we'll see ya. There's Robin Jacobson into the night. And something that has never happened. Let's welcome to the starting gate right now, wearing bib number 8, Greg Swingley. Greg is 35 from Sims, Montana. He has 6 years mushing experience. He was the winner of the Montana Governor's Cup in 1989 and is now racing his 3rd bear grease. He placed 3rd in last year's race, 5th the year before, working his way up to a first place finish he hopes this time. That's earned him Rookie of the Year honors back in 1990. Greg says his hobbies are dog mushing, dog breeding, and ultra-marathon running. Greg is sponsored by Royal Canine USA and by Shearing Labs. Let's say good evening to Greg Swingley from Sims, Montana.
Back at the start of the 1992 Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon, there's Squaw Lake, Minnesota's Robin Jacobson heading out on the trail. And next up is another one of this year's favorites, Greg Swingley, 35-year-old from Sims, Montana. But real quickly on Robin Jacobson, now there's a real good musher. His wife, of course, is running in this year's race. But Robin's got 3 new dogs. He picked up 10 new dogs this past year from Peter Smars from down in Rochester. And Smars was more of a 130 type musher, but he had some fast dogs, and Robin's really hoping for a fast team this year.
Peter ran to Finland in the 1990, was it, race? And he did fairly well there, so his dogs have been on this trail, and I think they could make the crossover. But of course, if anyone can help them do it, it would be Robin.
And Robin, of course, one of the big favorites in this year's race, along with Greg Swingley. There you see him there from Sims, Montana. He was 3rd this past season, or this past year, and 5th 2 years ago in this race. Greg Swingley with now a 90-dog kennel. When he first came here 2 years ago, he had a 50-dog kennel, and now he's got more than 90. And he is definitely one of the people to look for this year, I'm sure.
Greg's been rising fast. It's just incredible. I think his first race ever was in Montana in 1989. And just ever since then, he's just gone to the top.
Last year's winner.
Now, Terry Adkins, of course, is the next musher due out. The 48-year-old from Sand Coulee, Montana, is the defending champion in this race. And we'll go live now to the starting chute with Tony Shockley. Terry's right there on his sled runners.
And we're here live at the starting line with Terry Adkins, of course, last year's champion. He's getting set right now. We're going to see if we can get in and have a word with Terry right now. Terry. And he's getting prepared. Terry, how are you feeling going into tonight? How's the team?
Good team.
Good team? How's the weather?
I guess it's good weather. It's all we got to run in, right?
Any last-minute strategy you can share with us?
Thank you.
Any last-minute strategy you can share with us?
Simple strategy. Go out and win it.
All right, thank you very much. And Terry is getting prepared here to go now, of course.
A lot of pressure on this guy. He, nobody's ever repeated, and Terry Adkins is this guy is going to try and do it this year. Nobody's ever done it in the history of the John Bear Grease, and of course he would like to be the first.
They got the jinx factor that everybody's talking about. 4 former champions in this year's field, and as you mentioned, Tom, 8 times this race has been run, and 8 times there have been a different champion. But Terry boldly predicted at the Mushers Banquet the other night, as he did last year too, that he would be back in time to sit on his favorite stool at Grandma's on Friday night. Of course, that would be another new course record.
Well, I guess it depends what you call when you cut off Friday night.
Yeah, that's true.
Terry was a little closed mouth there. He's usually a little looser with his words, but he likes to keep his strategy to himself, and we'll see how it unfolds for him.
The strategy is obviously a very important part of this entire race. It's every musher's, I guess, game plan.
Well, I think Terry took a cumulative of around 2 hours rest between Tofty and Beaver Bay last year, and this year a new rule has been instated where a musher has to take 8 hours rest in that time period. That's going to drastically change his strategy.
We'll have more on that coming up, Kerry, but Mark Black is coming up next, a gentleman you're very familiar with because he has some of your dogs he's racing with. Can you tell us a little bit how that arrangement was made, Kerry?
Well, Mark acquired some of my dogs through Jack Bauer. Jack bought my kennel this spring. We were looking for someone to acquire our dogs for financial reasons. We needed to take some time off. And So Mark has got those dogs that weren't taken to Jack. It sometimes happens. They're good dogs. They'll finish this race, and the ones that Jack has kept will finish too. So it's good to see those dogs racing this year.
I was talking to Mark just prior to the start of the race. His lead dog unfortunately went out with like a muscle injury about a week ago, and unfortunately he's going to have to change maybe his lead dog in the race, and a little tentative about that. So hopefully we'll see that won't affect him too much, but he's really anxious, of course, to Duluthian, making his first ever run in the Bear Grease 500 this year. He had a little vision, he said, Mike, little dream that him and Ryan Patterson would come across the finish line at the same time, he said, at the same time.
Well, let's send it down to Tony Shockley now at the starting chute. Maybe, oh, we're doing the countdown there. I don't know if we're going to be able to talk to Mark. He's kind of got other things on his mind at this moment. And obviously, he's got his priorities, and I guess you can't blame him. But as you mentioned, Tom, Mark Black in the race, he's real serious about it this year. He did tell me, though, that he actually did try to run this thing in 1985, but he was quite a bit more inexperienced at the time, and he didn't get very far. He's not real proud of that. He said he knows a lot more about the dogs and a lot more about the sport now, and that's obviously very important.
You might notice some of his dogs are looking around. That's not something you're going to see in an experienced team.
And we'll get back into that a little bit more, but right now let's take a break, and we'll come back here with more live coverage of the 1992 Bear Grease Sled Dog.
Kristen Gilbertson now at the starting line is also married to Dave Olison, who you'll be meeting in a couple of minutes as he takes off on the 92 Bear Grease. Kristen Gilbertson, as I mentioned, is from Yellowknife, Northwest Territory in Canada. She's new to the Bear Grease this year. Kristen is a three-time finisher, however, of the Canadian Championship Yellowknife. Kristen has been mushing for 6 years, is no stranger to the sport, has a kennel of 60 dogs. Her sponsors include Purina Pro Plan, Air Findy of Yellowknife, and by Textile Outfitters of Calgary. Ladies and gentlemen, Kristen Gilbertson from Yellowknife, Northwest Territory. As you can see, the Bear Grease is truly an international event. I'd like to also remind you, of course, that you can register to win some great Coleman products. The $1 registration helps defray the cost of putting on the Bear Grease each year. And who knows, your $1 raffle ticket could win you, among other things, one of 2 16-foot canoes, or Coleman stoves and lanterns, Coleman heaters, the famous Coleman sleeping bag, and tent. Some of the great prizes that have been contributed by the Coleman Company, one of our sponsors.
Working along with Tom Hansen, Gary Donners, and Tony Shockley. The next musher due out is Kristen Gilbertson from Reliance Northwest Territories. Here's a person that you know real well, Gary.
There's the face of a terrified rookie. Kristen, in some senses, is no rookie to the game. She's been mushing for a long time, and with being out of Dave's kennel and being Dave's wife and having that experience of being a handler for years and years, the only thing that's going to be new to her is just being out there alone.
Of course, Kristen Gilbertson, Dave Olison's wife. They're formerly of Ely, now living up in Reliance, Northwest Territories, Canada. And as you mentioned, it's her first time down the trail, but Dave's run it a couple of times. One big thing this year, one of the big issues is one of the rule changes. We've talked about it a little bit, but 8 hours, mandatory cumulative layover between Skyport and Beaver Bay on the return leg. A lot of mushers feel that this may increase the speed of the race through the first half and just be a sprint up to Grand Portage, and then they'll rest their dogs for the return leg. It obviously affects the strategy, and it's a real big issue in this year's event.
No question about it, Mike. This year's race will add another challenge for the drivers this year with, as you mentioned, 8 hours mandatory rest between Skyport and Beaver Bay on the return trip. But the added rest time may not cut down on the total time of the race, and it's not all mushers that agree with the new rule completely coming into the race.
Kind of an interesting little adaptation here on Jim Tompkins' sled for that back race standing position. He's got a little bike seat that folds out. Kind of a cross between a sled dog sled and a Schwinn bike. All right, here we go. Jim Tompkins is ready to start the 1992 Bear Grease, a 500-mile track. He's going to start.
Carry a lot of mushers like to run a fast team and give them lots of rest. How do you think that this mandatory 8-hour on the way back on the return leg will affect this year's race as Jim Tompkins now takes off? Tompkins from South Coast, Saskatchewan, another rookie. He has 10 years mushing experience, first in the 90 Montana Triathlon. He was second in the Engstrom Silver in both 1990 and 91. But real quickly, talk about that.
Well, you know, it's really hard to call right now because until you see the whole thing played out, you really don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of speculation that people are going to really charge real hard in the beginning of the race because they have to rest towards the end. But I think it might be foolish to do that to your team, and you do have to take your 12-hour rest in there somewhere also. You want to space that in a way that's going to be helpful to your team. A formula that we used to work by was that an hour's rest at the beginning of the race is worth 3 hours at the end. You can never get that back once you lose it.
As you mentioned, we'll see how that plays out as the race goes on. Next up to start, Mark Nordman. We'll be back with his start right after this break. You're watching the 1992 live coverage of the start of the Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon.
Of course, we want to thank each and every one of the communities along the Bear Grease route. It's through their cooperation that we're able to put on this race, whether it be Grand Marais, where Mark is from, or Grand Portage, the turnaround point halfway through the race, or Two Harbors, Silver Bay, or any one of the other stops along the North Shore Trail. It's the communities and the people there that turn out to support the mushers and this great event that allows us to keep the Bear Grease going year after year. And not only does the Bear Grease keep going, but it keeps growing in its importance and its reputation, not only around the world, but now across the United States and Canada. All right, let's send Mark on his way here. You guys ready? Count him down with me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll see ya. He's on his way.
And there you have it. There goes Mark Nordman off the trail. We tried to talk to him, but he wanted to check his dogs one last time. And now we're getting set for our next group of mushers to come. And we're getting set here.
Kathy Zeck is, of course, the next musher up. She's one of the rookies in this year's race. 11 rookies in this year's field, by far the most in a long time, since maybe the first or one or two Bear Greases. Carrie, you know that feeling of being a rookie. You've run this race 4 times, and your first race was about 5 or 6 years ago, and you get that knot in your stomach. It just doesn't seem to go away before the race.
You know, it seems like it all starts to dissipate once you get out across the golf course. You start getting through these crowds of people that are cheering you on. You don't feel so alone. You feel like you're finally, you're away from that truck and you got the whole race ahead of you. There's just too many things to think about to be really too nervous. And there are a lot of romantic things about that first time out on the sled.
But Carrie, you still have the memories. You were just telling me before we went on the air that you still have that knot in your stomach. Come on over here, right?
It's really funny. I think it had something to do with the place that the sun was in the sky, because as I was driving to Ordine, I was just as nervous as any other race I've been in.
Kathy Zeck is now heading to her sled runners for her first trek up the Bear Grease Trail. Let's take it down to Tony Shockley. Maybe she can slip a microphone in and get Kathy's final thoughts before her first race.
Oh, right.
How's the weather? How you feeling here?
Weather, no problem. My tummy has a few butterflies, though.
How's your team doing?
I think
ready?
fine. Fat.
Fat.
We're fat.
Should run a good race.
We're preparing for the cold, so we're fat.
All right, good luck.
Kathy Zeck is from Sagal, Idaho. She's a Bear Grease rookie coming off 4 years in sprint dog racing. She's been mushing for 6 years. This is her first long distance race. She's been gearing up for this one for 3 years, and it does take an awful lot of preparation.
You know, she talked about her dogs being fat. You know, you really want to be careful that your dogs have the right amount of weight on them, because it's an endurance event. They're going to lose weight throughout the next few days. There's no way you can get the calories into them that they're burning and still keep them healthy. So that, the point about the weight, there was some truth behind that.
And Kathy Zeck, she did mention about the butterflies as well, the natural rookie instincts. Now, next up, out of the chute here is Scott Lundberg, who will be mushing Lloyd Gilbertson's team. Lloyd, a Schroeder native. He stands well over 6 feet tall, but didn't duck quite far enough under a tree branch during training this year, and now has a bad disc because of it. He'll have to miss this year's race. He's not allowed to stand on the sled runners at this point. So Scott from Poplar, Wisconsin, who's run the Bear Grease 90. He was 5th last year in that, and will take Lloyd Gilbertson's team out of the chute.
The third Duluthian also involved in this one. You mentioned Poplar, Mike, and originally from Poplar.
Let's take it down to Tony Shockley now. She's down at the starting line. There you see Lloyd Gilbertson, and Lundberg's wearing his bib number 15. And let's take it down to Tony Shockley now down at the start.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. We're here waiting for the next team to leave here right now. And Scott Lundberg is preparing to leave. We're going to see if we can talk to him, but he is quite busy right now. Move in here. Scott, how are you feeling tonight?
Pretty good. I'm looking forward to it.
How's the team doing?
They're doing excellent. Really good. In fact, 8 good last night, 8 good this morning.
All right, and there you have it. He's looking good. He looks excited. He's got determination in his eye. And Scott Lundberg, he's off.
Now this is one guy who would be real nervous. A rookie running a real experienced, real fast team. I think Scott's going to do real well. He's been with Lloyd, helping other, being around the Bear Grease, so he knows what's going on. Yeah. But he's got a hot team and very little knowledge to go on.
Well, he'll have to be taking Lloyd's advice up the trail. Let's take it down now to Tony Shockley once again. She's got a couple of special guests with her there at the starting chute.
I do indeed, Mike. I have George Snyder with me from Iceman Boots. How are you doing tonight, and are you staying warm?
I am staying very warm, and the mayor is staying warm now too, because we set out and got him a pair of our Ice King boots.
George, you've been with this race through thick and thin. How does it feel to be back again this year?
I love it. I love it. No, we have a very fond spot in our heart for Duluth and the John Bear Grease sled dog race.
Now, you had a special proclamation read for you tonight. How did it feel to have such an honor?
I feel very humble receiving an honor like that from Duluth, really. It's wonderful. It's heartwarming.
And Mayor Doty, this is your first Bear Grease, of course, as mayor. Are you staying warm, and are you happy to be here?
Oh, I'm warm and I'm happy to be here, and I really want to thank George and Lacrosse for what they've done. They've been 5 years running. They've been involved in this, and it is the biggest sled dog race in continental U.S., and it's good for our city. We bring in $1.5 million into the city because of it, and without people like George and Lacrosse and the Iceman Boots, we wouldn't be able to do it. I really appreciate what they've done for us.
Thank you both for coming down here. It's good for us to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Mixing mushing and politics here this evening.
Got a weird combination.
Next up, Kenny Hess, a 37-year-old from Bozeman, Montana, racing a team owned by Greg and Doug Swingley. He's a Bear Grease rookie. He was first in last year's Race to the Sky 250 in Montana, but he's a Bear Grease rookie, but not a rookie musher, and he's racing another very good team. That Swingley team is a real strong one. You're watching live coverage of the start of the 1992 Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon, and we'll be back with more as you see Kenny Hess take it out of the starting chute right after this.
Wearing bib number 17, this is Della Zappa from Comstock, Wisconsin. Della's 34 years old. She's been mushing for 8 years now. She's raced in the UP 200, the 1990s. Will you welcome Della Zappa?
Terry Donners and Tony Shockley down in the starting chute. Della Zappa is our next musher due out. She will leave at 6:47 this evening, the 17th musher to hit the trail here from Mordine Field. She's from Comstock, Wisconsin, running her first Bear Grease 500, taking the place of her husband Dan, who's run this race 6 times in the past, but Dan had a little trouble wrestling a snowmobile during the megastorm this year and kind of ended up with a disjointed back, kind of like Lloyd, only Lloyd did it hitting a tree branch while he was training. So 2 guys out with bad backs this year, and Della Zappa is stepping in for her husband, and she's run some races, some smaller distance races in the past.
There's Dan there in the foreground. Dan had a real slow early race last year. I guess there was a virus or something that went through his team, but the guy held it together. They brought the team across the finish line. It was beautiful to see. A lot of times a sickness can just bring a team out of the race, but they pulled it together.
And Dan Zappa is, of course, going out in the second sled right now behind Della Zappa as they leave the starting chute. He will get off that second sled at the Riley Road checkpoint because of the rough trail conditions between here and Riley Road, 7 miles away. And Della Zappa will take the team from there. Dan said he's 90% right now, but is not really quite healthy enough to take it from there, and he will be your chief handler up the rest of the route. But as we now turn it to some of the favorites of this year's race, there are many, and it's a real competitive field, as we mentioned earlier. The Jinx is a factor, and Tom, let's take a look at some of this year's favorites.
Okay, Mike, as Mike mentioned, plenty of favorites this year in the Bear Grease. Let's go right to them. Jamie Nelson, first of all, she's one of the wants to be one of those to repeat. She won in '88 in time of 103 hours and 20 minutes. The Grand Rapids school bus driver has been mushing for some 19 years. Grand Marais native Mark Nordman making another appearance at the Bear Grease, his 7th. He has 16 years of mushing experience. Mark is sponsored by Eagle Products. Nordman was in the '89 Iditarod. Meanwhile, 48-year-old Terry Atkins has already left. He's back to defend his title. He's on the course. The Montana native won in a time of 82 hours and 25 minutes just a year ago. Greg Swindley of Montana is racing his 3rd Bear Grease. He was 3rd last year and 5th in 1990. The 35-year-old has 6 years of mushing experience. He came on strong in last year's race. And of course, the '86 Bear Grease winner is back. Robin Jacobson has also raced in the Iditarod, placed 18th in the '87 race. Robin's wife, Kathy, has also entered in this year's Bear Grease. Hiking, biking, and carpentry are some of his interests, but not right at this time. He'll be a favorite again this year, of course. And those are just some of them. Of course, the Bear Grease, the '85 John Bear Grease and John Patton. And let's go right now, Mike. We'll finish these bios. We got one of the mushers just leaving now.
This is Bradley Erickson taking off from Leonard, Minnesota. Bradley had a little trouble a couple of years ago, but he's always been a strong finisher in this race. He never has one of the fastest teams, but he's got a steady team usually year in and year out.
Brad returns year after year. I think he ran 6 dogs from Grand Portage to the finish line maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Just incredible. Real tough dogs, a real tough guy. Doesn't have a lot of speed, but he'll always be there.
Vern Halter is the next musher due out of Ordine Field. He will be the 19th musher to leave at 6:51.
Okay, and of course, we're just starting here. There's going to be a few more coming out here at the Ordine Field and the John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon. Of course, the first place prize, $10,000, a purse of $50,000, and Tony Shockley's down at the start. Tony, do you have some information for us?
Yes, I do. I have Vern Halter right here, and we're going to try to ask him how he's doing tonight.
Good luck.
Vern, how are you feeling?
I feel great. I always feel great.
What'd you spend your afternoon doing?
Oh, I slept. Well, we went out and had breakfast with a bunch of friends of mine came over at Perkins, and then we just sat around, and I laid around most of the afternoon, slept, read a little bit, made a few phone calls to Alaska. I've got a team that's running another race up there, and I was checking on them and things like that.
You seem incredibly relaxed. How is your team?
Well, I've got a really, look at them. They're beautiful. I got a real nice young team that we're bringing down. This is basically a training run for me on the way to the Iditarod this year, but I've got 8 experienced racers in here and 8 3-year-olds, so I think it's a nice team.
All right, Vern, we'll look for you on the trail. Thank you.
Vern Halter will be the next musher out of the starting chute. We'll come back and see Vern start right after this.
You can't go off the top rope, Paul. All right, let's get
They all heard I was going to be helping you guys.
From Grey Eagle, Minnesota, out into the night. 15 seconds from now, he starts the marathon in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. You stay off that top rope, Paul. Wearing bib number 21, Brad Pazarski of Botno, North Dakota. is certainly familiar with toughing it out in the wilderness, as he's worked for the North Dakota Parks and Tourism Department for 18 years. He's sponsored in this race tonight by Twin Forks Pest Western, by Eagle Pet Food Congress Incorporated, by the Grand Avenue Veterinary Clinic, and by First National Bank of Bottineau, North Dakota.
This is Brad Kozarski from Bottineau, North Dakota. He is running his 6th Bear Grease. He was 13th last year, finished the race 10th in 1990. That was a couple spots behind you, Kerry. I believe you finished 8th that year, if I'm right. He's got 12 years of mushing experience and a 45-dog kennel, and he's one of those mushers who always finishes this race year in and year out.
Brad takes good care of his dogs, and he has some speed in the beginning of the race, and sometimes it stays with him and sometimes it goes. It all depends on the weather. He trains out there on the prairie, North Dakota, and the conditions are a little bit different here. Brad's just real good nature. He always has a real up attitude, and that's important when you're out there and things aren't looking real good.
Starting before him in the 20th position at 6:53 was Paul Ellering, a 38-year-old from Grey Eagle, Minnesota, former professional wrestler running his 2nd Bear Grease. He started a couple of minutes ago. And now Bradley Kozarski from Bottineau, North Dakota, will take off in the starting chute here for the 1992 John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon. Let's catch the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, we're going to see you, Brad. We'll see you back at Lester Park sometime over the weekend.
Brad's one of those guys who one of these years just might win this race. There are several other favorites to this year's event. And Tom, let's catch up with the rest of them. I believe we're starting with a familiar name in John Patton.
No question about it, as we see Kozarski getting out of the chutes here at Ordine Field. Let's go right to the John Patton. Of course, he's the 85 Bear Grease champ, looking for a win at number 2. John Patton, 50 years old, from Grand Marais, one of the founding fathers of the race. Some of the sponsors include Wilderness Waters Outfielders and Sawtooth. Brad Kozarski is now in his 12th year of mushing. He has 45 dogs in his kennel, of course, from North Dakota, 18 years in the wilderness. He's worked for the North Dakota Parks and Tourism Office. And 42-year-old Vern Halter of Trapper Creek, Alaska, is looking to place better than his 7th place performance a year ago. He was the 1990 Yukon Quest champion. He was 3rd in the 89 Bear Grease. He has also competed in 4 Iditarod, so Vern obviously very experienced in this race.
He was also 2nd behind Susan Butcher in 1990 in this event. John Patton, we mentioned his name just a couple of moments ago, will be the 22nd musher due out of Ordine Field here at 6:57 this evening. The 50-year-old from Grand Marais, Minnesota, one of the founding fathers of this event. And Kerry, if it weren't for people like John Patton, this race would not be running today.
John's had a lot to do with the way that the race has been shaped and formed since when it started in Grand Marais, and they were going to trade off between Duluth and Grand Marais, and then kind of got extended then up to Grand Portage, and John's been with it the whole way through.
John hasn't put as much time training in this year because he had a couple of bouts with pneumonia earlier this fall. He said he hasn't had as much time on the runners as he would have liked to have normally had. And John Patton will be the next musher out of Ordine Field here. And as we mentioned, he is starting 22nd. The next checkpoint up the trail used to be the Idle Hour. Now it's the Riley Road along the Jean-Duluth intersection, 7 miles north. And of course, from there, Highway 2 checkpoint a little later on, around 11 o'clock this evening, they're due into the Highway 2 checkpoint, and then they go north from there. But we took a look at some of the favorites in this year's field. Tony Shockley's been down there for the start of most of the mushers here this evening. Let's take it down to Tony. And Tony, what do you think is going to happen with this year's race?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to predict Robin Jacobson, and simply because of the wife factor. He's got wife Kathy chasing him this year. Hey, that's incentive enough to win.
Sounds like Tony speaking from experience there. Tom, let's get your real quick prediction.
Greg Swindley finished strong a year ago in this race, finished 3rd. I like his attitude. I like the dogs when they left tonight. I think Greg Swindley will continue the jinx, and he'll never be there, at least this year, will not be a double winner yet, and he'll win his first Bear Grease.
That's an interesting factor, that jinx factor. I think that I have to agree with you, Tommy. If you take a graph of where Greg started and follow it through, it's really logical that he can be a winner here. Vern Halter is real strong. Jamie again. It's just there's a lot of tough men and women out there, and anything could go.
Sounds like we've got a couple of Greg Swingley backers here. Well, I think Greg Swingley's got a real strong team this year as well, but I'm going to say Vern Halter's going to come back from that disappointing 7th place finish from a year ago, and he's going to take it this year. Brian Patterson's the next musher due out. The native of Duluth will take off. He's number 23, and we'll watch him take off from Ordine Field as we close this broadcast. Thanks a lot for joining us here for the live start of the 1992 John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon.
He's competed in each and every one since 1989. Let's send him on his way Duluth style. Here's from Duluth, Brian Patterson in 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, see ya! Well, we told you that there were 2 married couples competing in this race, competing against each other, and of course competing against the field of 29 other teams. And here comes the second half of our second married couple. Dave Olesen, whose wife Kristen Gilbertson took off earlier this evening. Now it's Dave's turn at the starting line. Will you welcome Dave Olesen, second of our husband and wife teams. He's formerly from Ely, Minnesota, now lives near the Twin Cities. He has finished 5th in this race twice before. Dave Olesen, no stranger to the starting line at the Bear Grease or the finish line. As I say, having finished 5th 2 times in past Bear Grease marathons. And we're glad to have Dave Olesen and this year his wife both in the Bear Grease for 1992. We're getting ready, of course, in a little while. Some of the first teams are nearing the idle hour. If we get some information on that, we'll be glad to pass it along to you here this evening. Just a little over a minute now before Dave Olesen takes off into the night. It's a long road, a 500-mile stretch of white that he'll be following over the next couple of days. It'll take him to the halfway point at Grand Portage, and then, of course, back here to Duluth. And don't forget, we've got a whole bunch of great Bear Grease events. Now, I'll tell you about those, but first, let's send Dave out into the night Duluth style. Count them down with me. Let's join at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He's out of here. He's out of here. Another one of our area mushers, Eric Simula from Cohasset, Minnesota. Eric is 27. He's competed in the Bear Grease since 1987, so he certainly is no stranger to Ordine Field or the start of this race. Eric has also been a participant in the Mid-Minnesota, the Empire 130, and in the Elite Sprint. He's sponsored by Superior Shores Lodge just outside of Two Harbors, by the Bluestone Company in Canal Park at the DeWitt Sites Building, by Meds One Ambulance Service, Treasure Bay Printing, by Reed Drug, by Minnesota Wilderness Society, USA Fox and Furs, and by North Country Veterinary Clinic. Let's welcome Eric Simula from Cohasset, Minnesota. Eric was telling me before the race that he hopes it gets colder than this. He'd like to see the temperature fall right off the bottom of the basement steps. He thinks his team's going to do better in the cold. He's trained them in the cold, and he thinks they're going to run fast in the cold. So he hopes that that'll be his advantage over the next couple days as temperatures are forecast to bottom out well below zero both tonight and tomorrow's high temperature along this race course is only going to be in the single numbers below zero. So it could be that Eric is going to get his wish. Let's send him out into the cold tonight, shall we? He wanted it. He can have it. Here he goes. Count it down with me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. I hope it's cold enough for you, Eric. racing. He has another notable distinction in that he only speaks French. He has been mushing for 4 years, has placed second in the Quebec 89, in 1990 and 91, and he has placed third in the 1991 Labrador 400. Andre is sponsored by Canap Everest. From St. Marie, Quebec, Canada, Andre Nadeau. Andre getting ready to start his first ever Bear Grease Marathon. Having competed in many other dog sled events, this is one of his first that he'll participate here in the United States of America. And we certainly welcome him, and we're glad he's here for the Bear Grease and to be a part of the festivities over the next couple of days. Now, at Lester Park, you'll want to be there next Saturday for the race events that we have associated with the finish. Let's send him on his way. He's out of here in 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. Egg to go, ladies and gentlemen. Next Saturday afternoon, besides the finish line event, there are a whole host of family activities planned for the finish line. They'll be taking place that Saturday at the Lester River Park here in Duluth. Be sure and check your local newspaper for the time of those events, scheduled for next Saturday afternoon. Next Sunday afternoon at Chester Bowl, it is Family Snow Day with another whole day of activities for the family, from snow sculpturing to snow throw accuracy with snowballs to downhill sled racing to a treasure hunt in the snow. Some of the great events associated with the Duluth First Bank Winter Sports Festival, which is also part of the sponsorship for the Bear Grease. A lot of great events going on around the area, all culminating, of course, sometime next week on Saturday when we have the finish of this great race. In the starting chute, wearing bib number 27, Bob Summers from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Bob is one devoted dog sled racer. He was an independent businessman, but he sold his business so he could get into mushing full-time. We welcome him back for his second appearance here at the Bear Grease. He's supported by his family and by his wife, Jill. Ladies and gentlemen, from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, Bob Summers, a true dog sled enthusiast. He's wearing bib number 27, and he'll be out of here in a little less than half a minute. 29 teams entered in this year's race. If you stayed for us through the cold to say goodbye to each and every one, you are indeed a great fan of the Bear Grease, and we thank you. Let's send him on his way in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He's out of here. See ya. Bob Summers from Eden Prairie. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome to the starting line Kathy Jacobson from Squaw Lake, Minnesota. Kathy is from Squaw Lake, and she's competing in her first ever Bear Grease. She's been training with her husband, Robin Jacobson, who won the Bear Grease 500 in 1986. And as we say, she is one of the 4 people who are not only competing against the rest of the field, but are racing against each other as husband and wife. Kathy Jacobson now at the starting line. Robin Jacobson somewhere out in the darkness along the North Shore Trail, somewhere between here and the first checkpoint at the idle hour. Kathy Jacobson wearing bib number 28 this evening, about ready to leave, starting her 500-mile quest towards victory in the 1992 Bear Grease. 2 more teams left to leave, Kathy Jacobson, and then our final team this evening, Albert Fleury. I'd like to remind you one more time, we thank our sponsors, the Lacrosse, makers of the Ice Van and Ice King boot. We also want to thank U.S. West Cellular, Minnesota Power, Northwest Airlines, Coleman. They make the products that that make the outdoors fun. And each and every one of you who are friends of the Bear Grease, and if you'd like to be a friend of the Bear Grease, you can sign up at the concession tent on your way home this evening. Let's send Kathy Jacobson on her way. Let's count her down. Let's go at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. She's out of here. She's on her way. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 29th of 29 teams. This is the field for the 1989 John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon. Albert Fleury at the starting line. He's from Gilbert, Minnesota. Let me tell you a little bit about Albert. He's 45 years old from Gilbert, Minnesota. He's been mushing now for 3 years. He placed 8th in the 1989 Amnicon 6-dog class and 3rd in the 1989 Bear Grease 130. Al is a 30-dog kennel in Gilbert. He is an internal medicine physician. He's sponsored partly by his employer, the East Range Clinic, and also by Iron Trail Motors. Albert Fleury from Gilbert, Minnesota, wearing bib number 29, making our field of 29 mushers complete this evening. Let's send him out with everything we got. What do you say? It's going to be awfully quiet for all these mushers over the next couple of days. Let's cheer them on. Maybe some up the trail can still hear us as we raise our voices for the start of the 1992 Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon for Northland Tradition. 30 seconds. Remember, stay tuned to your local media, radio, television, and the newspaper for updated reports on the race. And then please join us at the finish line as we welcome back the winner sometime Friday night or Saturday morning. But let's now say goodbye to Albert Fleury. Here he goes into the night. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya! Out into the night, out into the Arctic, and along the trail of 500 miles of snow and cold between here and Grand Portage and back to Duluth Friday night or Saturday morning. Thank you each and every one of you. I'm Ken Bueller. We appreciate you being with us this evening and for your enthusiastic support of each and every one of the mushers and for your support of the Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon. We still have our concession tents. If you'd like a hot chocolate, please pick one of those up on the way out. If you'd like to take a look at any one of the Bear Grease memorabilia, whether it be one of our collector cups or one of the t-shirts or sweatshirts, those are also for sale. And while you're at the concession tent, please check on becoming a friend of the Bear Grease. It's by individual support that we're able to keep the Bear Grease going.
Well, I know they like a cold trail, but I think tonight might be a little too much.
I froze my feet at the starting line, but I think they like it cold. But there is a point where it gets too cold, and I don't know if we're going to get to that point tonight or not. But the 1992 Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon is off and running. 29 mushers left from Ordine Field tonight, headed for Grand Portage and then back to Duluth. Their first checkpoint, Riley Road, and our Ted Rollins was there to greet them. And he has this report.
Mark Stamm was the first to start this year's Bear Grease. He was also the first to make it to the Riley Road checkpoint. Just 9.5 miles up the trail, most mushers use this first checkpoint to make sure everything is in place for the long journey ahead. For Stamm, 5 minutes was all it took before he was off and running. For others, like Bob Lugo, the break gives them a chance to make some adjustment. With the help of race volunteers, Lugo changed his team's boots before he moved on.
It's cold, very cold. It's only going to get colder down to 15 degrees below zero tonight. Thus far, though, the mushers who've come through the checkpoint say the trail's running very fast.
Probably keep fast if it keeps this cold. It's going to be a good course, I think.
How's the course, Mark? How's it running?
The course is great. I just wish the wind would go away.
All right.
A little cold turned into that wind, otherwise it's great. All right, let's go.
The big names like Terry Atkins, Greg Swingley, Jamie Nelson, Robin Jacobson, and Vern Halter all breezed right through this first checkpoint. They're expected to arrive at the second checkpoint at Highway 2 around 11 o'clock tonight. I'm Ted Rollins on the Bear Grease Trail for Sports 6.
This Bear Grease update brought to you by Minnesota Power and Anheuser-Busch.
And let's check out the total elapsed time so far into the Riley Road checkpoint. Andre Nadeau zipped in at 46 minutes. It all took him to get from point A to point B. Ray Gordon at 51. Terry Atkins right there at 51 as well. Greg Swingley at 54. Mark Stamm also at 54. John Patton 54 minutes. Bob Lugo just a minute back. Vern Halter also there at 55. Brad Pozarnski at 56 minutes. Brad Erickson at 56 minutes. And Jamie Nelson just took her 57 minutes from point A to point B. A lot of mushers in the 59 and 60 minute category. Some of those Kathy Jacobson. Also Mark Nordman, Eric Simula, Bob Summers, Jack Gebauer of Ely. Our Mike Birkeland saw Gebauer put on his mushing pants backwards today before the race started. He was a little nervous entering his first 500-mile Bear Grease. Mark Black at 61, Della Zappa at 66 minutes, Kirsten Jacobson at 74, and just one rookie, Jim Tompkins. He started 12th and no time in yet at the Riley Road for Jim Tompkins. He's a rookie. He started 12th, and of course they're all heading to Highway 2.
Back up.
The sleds are still heading up the North Shore.
Michelle, that they are. They haven't had the return trip home yet, but it's not too far. They're going to be able to do that. But a lot of them made some good speed today, some good times out on the trails, no question about it. The differences in strategy are beginning to show in this, the first full day of the Bear Grease. The musher who runs a mistake-free race will likely emerge as this year's champion. But as our Mike Birkeland tells us, it's hard to judge whose strategy is the best just 24 hours into the race.
It may look warm, but this campfire wasn't putting off much heat in sub-zero temperatures early this morning along the Bear Grease Trail at the Sawbill checkpoint. The cold wait didn't last long, though. Squaw Lake, Minnesota's Robin Jacobson arrived here just past sunrise as the early pace setter in this 500-mile race.
Where's my handlers? Anybody know? I'm not sure if they're yours or yet, Rob, but there were some guys who were just straight ahead up the trail here.
The 1986 champion used the seclusion of this remote checkpoint to take his 12-hour mandatory layover.
So how soon did somebody leave behind me?
Well, they were leaving right and left.
Right behind me?
His strategy is simple. Run them fast and rest them long.
I'm not reacting to what anybody does. I mean, I'm just doing my own schedule. That's why I didn't stay in Finland very long and other people did. I mean, I don't care how long they're staying anywhere. I know what my schedule is. If I stick to it, with the way I got these dogs trained, I got a pretty good shot at winning. I mean, we still got a long way to go, but I'm right where I want to be. I might be like 5 minutes behind where I thought I was going to be, but that's about all.
Defending champion Terry Atkins stopped just long enough to feed and water his team of 15 long-distance athletes. But Atkins wasn't the first musher back on the trail.
Him? That far back by Bear?
His Montana neighbor, Greg Swingley, rearranged his lead dogs, placing Oscar and Blue in the front of the team, and started off as the first musher making the trip to the halfway point of the race.
Well, I knew this would happen. You know, we were at this point last year, and we took 12 hours, and we decided that I could have kept on going and still averaged pretty good speed.
The combination of 20 below temperatures overnight and a fast, hard trail still has the lead mushers in this Bear Grease Marathon fighting to hold back their teams, despite being well over 150 miles into this 500-mile journey.
because of the hard trail, the fast trail, they must be going at, it's almost like you have to govern them in a sense, I suppose.
Still do, on the downhills especially, because they get up some speed, but with the cold weather, it's easy to pull a muscle or something, so we're constantly governing the speed going downhill. The trail's so hard, the dogs can just go as fast as they want. I mean, I've been on my brake the whole race. I took my track off at Finland, but I stood on that all the way to Finland. I had to, because they want to lope. They want to just go as fast as they possibly can.
But for those teams currently taking their mandatory 12, it's time for sleep.
Don't move.
And staying warm. On the Bear Grease Trail, I'm Mike Birkland, Sports 6.
And a couple of the mushers have already dropped out. They haven't been as lucky as others. Kathy Zetch of Idaho has dropped out of the race, and also Albert Fleury of Gilbert, Minnesota. So here's where it stands, at least at Skyport, taking 12-hour layovers. Greg Swinley arrived at noon. Terry Atkins at 1:18. Kenny Hess this afternoon. Mark Stamm also this afternoon. He arrived with 15 dogs. Jamie Nelson arrived with 14 dogs at 3:47. And in just within the half hour or so, Andre Nadeau with 13 dogs. He is taking his 12-hour mandatory layover into Sawbill. As we mentioned, Robin Jacobson, as Mike mentioned, he arrived at 7:35 a.m. Mike Birkland was there. John Patton also taking his 12 at 9:29 this morning. Kathy Jacobson there. Also Jim Tompkins and Jack Gebauer at 11:35. Now, Brian Patterson of Duluth arrived at Sawbill at 12:04. Eric Simula, who brought in 10 dogs with him, at 12:09. Bob Lugo at 1:18 this afternoon. Also another Duluthian, Mark Black, with 16 dogs coming in to Sawbill. He arrived at 1:45. Bob Summers also arrived this afternoon to take his, he arrived at Sawbill for his layover there. Della Zappa arrived this afternoon. Brad Erickson also arrived. Dave Olson and Christian Gilbertson at 4 this afternoon. Now, out of Finland, these people have already taken their 12-hour completed layovers. Vern Halter with 14 dogs have already left Finland. They're heading up the trail. They're 12 hours completed. Also 12 hours completed for Mark Nordman. He left with 15 dogs at 5:23 this afternoon.
Take a peek at everybody.
Another cold night ahead on the trail.
I don't know how they do it. I really don't, Michelle. I mean, it's cold, it's dark, you're out there by yourself. Why do people want to be mushers? The 1992 John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon now in its 28th hour. The colder temperatures are making this year's race both exciting and grueling. And as our Tony Shockley explains, that has made for some interesting strategies.
While Greg Swingley and Terry Atkins continue to blaze the trail, another well-known musher, Vern Halter, is opting for a different strategy. Unlike Swingley and Atkins, Halter took his mandatory 12 hours early along on the trail at the Finland checkpoint.
But I thought it was just time to take a break, considering this team. I'm trying to teach them to go real fast, and I'm promising them a lot of rest. And I'm developing a Iditarod team. My main Iditarod team's back home, and these guys, the good young ones in this team, will go into that for this year's.
Halter slept nearly 8 hours at Finland and even got a shower. But it's the dogs and not sleep that fills his thoughts. With coats and boots, the team is ready to move out. Halter will rest his dogs as much as needed, and he's unsure as to how his strategy will pay off on down the trail.
All right. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of trail left, and maybe he took something out of them, and we'll see him towards the end.
Halter's right, but not everyone is waiting. Greg Swingley, the Montana musher, made it from the Finland checkpoint to the Sawbill checkpoint in just 3 hours and 2 minutes, a new Bear Grease record.
Swingley's team was the first into Skyport, but the team's trainer remains modest about the race up to now.
Breaking records is great. We're just happy that the dog team is all here. We brought all 16 dogs. We're going tomorrow with all 16, and if they can perform the next 2 days like they did today, then, you know, we'll feel great at the end.
Swingley's team will be the first to leave Skyport, but last year's champ Terry Atkins won't be far behind, which will certainly make for a very interesting race. On the Bear Grease Trail, Tony Shockley, Sports 6.
Well, several mushers are taking their 12-hour layovers at Skyport. Greg Swindley arrived at noon, as Tony mentioned. Last year's winner, Terry Atkins, at 1:18. Kenny Hess at 2:26. Mark Stamp, Jamie Nelson, and Andre Nadeau all arrived at Skyport this afternoon. Out of Finland, Mark Nordman at 5:23, Scott Lundberg at 6:11, and Brad Pizarski at 6.